Welcome to the Unfucked Podcast. Today, my guest is Sean Waxman. Sean Waxman is a titan in the world of strength and conditioning with over 30 years of professional coaching experience. As the head coach and owner of Waxman's Gym, Sean has shaped champions, producing 2 top 10 finishers at the World Weightlifting Championships, a World University Championship silver medalist, multiple Pan Am Championship medalists, and over a dozen national level weightlifters, including 3 national champions and 4 American record holders. A former national level Olympic weightlifter himself, Sean earned a spot on the USA weightlifting national team, a national medal, and 5 California state championships under the legendary Bob Tucano. With a master's degree in biomechanics and kinesiology, he's not just a coach, but a scientist of strength, serving as an assistant strength coach for the University of Utah Youth Football, Utah State Director for the National High School Strength Coaches Association, and lead instructor for USA Weightlifting's coaching education program. He is a 2021 inductee into the Strength and Power Hall of Fame. Sean's passion for developing athletes, whether elite weightlifters, CrossFit competitors, or high school football players, stems from his relentless pursuit of human performance, sparked from being an 11-year-old boy watching the 1980 Olympics. He is also the author of Suffer Smarter, which catalogs his greatest life lessons under a barbell. Get ready for a deep dive into strength, resilience, discipline, and the art of coaching with a true master of the craft. In this almost 4-hour podcast, we go headfirst into strength as a virtue, the importance of a gym beyond the weights, and what might change the fitness industry for the better. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome to the Unfucked Podcast. My name is Michael Blevins. I've been training some of the world's most elite performers for over 15 years. From iconic actors and athletes to soldiers and CEOs. I'm an entrepreneur, an athlete, and an obsessive when it comes to human behavior.
Man looks in the abyss. There's nothing staring back at him. At that moment, man finds his character. And that is what keeps him out of the abyss. I think I understand.
Welcome to the Unfucked Podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Sean Waxman. He's an Olympic weightlifting coach, professional strength coach, longtime friend, and we're here to discuss On the Backbone of the Strength episode, a subject near and dear to his heart. Sean Waxman, thanks for coming along.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. I think it's you have always have an interesting take on the traditional concepts. So
you can call it antagonist. It's okay.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it because it makes me think, and anything that makes me think is a good thing.
Walk me through just like real, kind of like a couple sentences just on like your history with the barbell, how you came to it, your background with strength training, what drew you to it, just the big like touching points so people get a sense of how long you've done this and how engrossed kind of in your life this has been for you.
So I grew up in an era, I was born in '69. So, I coming of age in the early '80s, but my dad lifted weights. So, we lived in the projects, and he and his friend Raul would got a room in the basement of the building we lived in, and they set up their own training room. They made a lot of the equipment. They bought, I bought the weights, and I as a really little boy, I would go there and watch those guys lift weights, and he wouldn't let me lift with them at that age, 9, 10 years old. So, but I saw my dad do this thing. So I was always, it sparked the interest. My why early on was because I saw in the neighborhood, the bigger, stronger guys, either could win more fights or not get fucked with.
It's a survival thing.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I want to lift weights. And I want to be big and strong enough to either win more fights or not be fucked with.
Okay.
So And as I started doing it for that reason, I was playing sports. I played sports my whole life. My dad was a coach as well. So
Football.
I played everything. So I played basketball, I played football, I played baseball. Baseball was probably my best sport. And then I ran track, I boxed. I did, if it was a sport, I would play it, whatever was available in the city. There were some things that I had no concept of. But I found myself, the stronger I got, the more I trained, the better I was. I was just better than everybody. And that was a big deal for me because I realized that sports was maybe a way, it got me respect in the neighborhood, right? So I lived in a kind of a multicultural neighborhood. So, I play baseball with the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans, and I'd have respect in that community. I play basketball with the black guys, and I have respect in that community. Football is kind of a mixed bag. So it was, it really opened a lot of doors for me, not just from sports, but culturally. Like I would be invited to have dinner at a friend's house with a different culture of mine. So I got introduced to, Dominican and Puerto Rican food or Caribbean food and spend time at a dinner table with different cultures. It was great. And that's, that, to me, that started because I trained.
Yeah.
Right? And I fell in love with the process, and I started to just find anything I could read, anybody that would talk to me that was big, the biggest guy, right? You go up to the biggest guy and you ask him kind of questions. So some guys just tell me to go fuck off, but there was a couple of guys that took me under their wing and they taught me. My dad didn't know what he was doing. He just did it.
Yeah.
And then I would go to the library nearly every day, and I would just look for books that had anything to do with training, because the magazines were like Muscle and Fitness, and even at a young age, I realized, guy in tights, not for me. Like it's not that they don't look like the people that I want to look like. They're not doing the things that I want to do. Instinctually, I think I understood that. And then this was one of those defining moments in your life. Very at the very top of the whatever physical education section they had, there was a magazine box, and they had a stack of Soviet sports reviews, which is a magazine that Dr. Yesis, he transcribed Russian sports science into English.
Yeah.
And put it together in this Soviet sports review. And it was the first time that I was reading about training in a way that I knew that it was different than what I was reading, and it was important. I just didn't understand any of the words.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I think the first book I read from Verkhoshansky, like special strength
training.
I was like, I think I was.
You read that at 16?
Yeah. And I was like, they have measurements for these things, and they know precise, like centimeters that you should depth drop. And I was like, what is a depth drop?
Right.
I would try jumping off of a box, but I misunderstood the concept of like landing on a, elongated muscle or like, and so I was like, oh man, this is super secret. This is like, if I could understand this, then maybe I would understand what it is I'm doing.
That was what I was doing. I would sit there with the magazine and a dictionary.
It's like a treasure map.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And I would write down every word that I understood, right? Like, and then they had this other word that I didn't understand, and I would look it up. I would look it up in the dictionary, and I would write the definition.
Yeah.
And then I had just notebooks and notebooks of these notes. And then as I got older, I understood more. And then I would reread, And I would start to get, and I was like, wow, like there's a way, like you can, it's not random, right? Like there's a process to this.
Yeah.
And I started to, figure out from my own training, and I started to train myself in a way with a process. And then there was like canned training programs, like this Cybergenics or so, like these crazy programs. I would do them all. I would do them if they were geared towards sports. I would do them all. And then Bigger, Faster, Stronger, the magazine, or Bigger, Stronger, Faster, whichever one that it was. I saw that, and that he's from out here, and that was the first magazine that had athletes doing like power cleans, and they had their program. They had like a periodized program, and I did that, and I tried to understand what was going on, and I knew pretty early on that once I finished playing sports, whenever that was going to be, I was going to coach and strength. Like I didn't want to be a sport coach. I wanted to be a strength coach. Yeah,
I think that there was something about that attribute that is what linking all of these things together. And I think I think this is not that you're, the same, but there's a lot of similarities between you attaching yourself to the look and feel of an ability and then trying your best to exhibit that ability.
Yeah.
So you're signaling. So you're building kind of like a tribe of people that you want to belong to and people that want to belong to you. And this is this is why I said it's like cross culture. You mentioned it, but I look at like strength is probably one of the most enduring cultural values.
Well, you talked. It shows up in cave drawings, like the expression of strength.
Totally,
is one of the oldest things that humans have done, and expressed importance with.
Yeah, I would say we might only have. I think in the what would they call the written record, or things that are logging what we would call formal strength training, they call it 5,500 years, but I would say there's at least 50,000 years of it. Like it's 10x that, because when you watch even hunter-gatherer tribes that don't have an expressive way of a written record, they're doing these things. They're lifting stones. They're throwing things.
Well, they're talking now about some of these, the structures that they're finding, that predate like the pyramids of Gaza.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, those stones didn't lift themselves.
Right. Yes,
So
exactly,
so strength has always been the engine to build civilizations.
Yes. I think that I talk about it a little bit, and I'll probably go into it in more depth in a follow-up episode to strength, because I really do see it as like one of the most important behavior traits that you could have, not just as an athlete. I think as an athlete or in a sport, it's just like a very narrow tunnel that we get to, and that's kind of where we all kind of find where strength expression is most attractive to us, which brings me to like, what was it about a barbell for you that was like, what pinged in your head? Was it what you saw, or was it the people doing it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think it's a combination of both, because like I would look at, there was a guy that in the Bigger, Stronger, Faster magazines, this guy Stefan Ferlholm, who was an Olympic thrower, and like I had pictures of him in there, lifting weights, but the way his body was, and the things that he was doing, I'm like, that's who I want to be like. And he can run. He had a sub 4.540 at 270 pounds. So he went to like Denver Broncos training camp, and he like broke all their records. And football was was my big thing. But the way he looked, the way he moved. And they showed him lifting these weights, and I said, okay, well, if that's what it takes, I mean, if they showed him juggling chainsaws, I probably would have got into juggling chainsaws.
I still do this today. Like, I'm enamored with watching people move, right? Like, my Instagram, things that you should look at kind of thing. If I scroll through it, 90% of it is like guys jumping, jujitsu stuff, like
Yeah.
people moving in a very weightlifting. All of these subjects come together, and I think this is a really important part when you talk about what it is about strength, because it is what is the human inclination to want to copy these or exhibit these traits. To me, if I were to be honest, and maybe it's different, but you just, I think, made the case for it, is like, I think there's a measurement of beauty in it. And like anything, there's like, the human eye is attracted to symmetry, ratios,
rhythm,
and timing. All of those things can be remarkably beautiful. And this is what I would say took me kind of from the traditional lifts of just like bench, squat, deadlift, which I really was really after originally. And then something I saw in a snatch, and I went, oh, that's different. And I can't describe why. It just looks so fluid and rhythmic, and the timing and everything. But now I can obviously describe it in better language. But in essence, I just like, in my caveman mind, I go, I want to do that. And that's kind of how I picked it up.
It's funny you say that. I too, I am attracted to movement, and, it's so much so that, I went to graduate school for biomechanics because I want to understand. I could see the movement, but what's going on inside, for us to be able to create that? Like, how do we do that from an internal perspective? From not just a kinematic view, but a kinetic view. But I would spend a lot of time at the dance at grad school. Like, I loved watching the dancers, and then I dated one of the dancers, and she would watch me train, and then she had brought friends over, and we have these deep, long conversations. And so, to your point, almost everybody that I know that has studied dance seriously loves the snatch, because there's something about it that has the beauty of dance, and when it's done well, it just flows, and it's just so fast and rhythmic. And so there's something about that. And that's how, so for me, I'm very good at picking, like with recruiting athletes. Like, I can look at an athlete, somebody move, and say, okay, that's somebody I'm interested in. I can't always describe what I'm looking at, but
we can see the potential.
It's timing, it's rhythm, it's just the way they walk across the floor. There's an elegance. And those are the people that make the best weightlifters. You think weightlifters has got to be, this big, but it's not.
I would say people that misunderstand the sport, and this is when we get into kind of like maybe more of the details between the different aspects of strength expression, you learn very quickly in Olympic style weightlifting that this is an athletic endeavor. And I think when you measure across like sports that transfer very high, Olympic weightlifting is one of the highest for athletic ability, which is, kinesthetic awareness, body awareness, spatial awareness, all of those things. I think in some of the tests that they do between gymnastics and weightlifting are the highest. And this is where I kind of like, maybe not a criticism, but definitely a recognition of limitations of people, of what I would just call the industry of strength and conditioning, is that the teaching of, and again, it's an inanimate object, nothing against the practice, but the teaching of weightlifting through the means of like kettlebells and all of these inanimate objects, for whatever reason, the teaching of those movements don't transfer to complex athletic expression. And they've showed this like quite a bit. Crossovers, getting gymnasts to express like complex barbell movements. They're very good at the crossover, and same thing with weightlifters going over to gymnastics, back tucks and these, complex, explosive, multi-chain movements. And then you find bodybuilding, powerlifting kind of fall off the bat, although the peak expression is there for what their sport represents, but the transferability is very low. And I think that's
rigid. It's too binary, like powerlifting
on, off. Yeah.
It's just that, like, that's why you like, what's strong, like what's too strong. People, there's still coaches out there that say, well, you can't be strong enough in sport. Yeah. And I say that's total bullshit.
Yeah.
If the best athletes are the best movers, the ability to move themselves from point A to point B as quickly and as elegantly as possible, then it can't be just about on off.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to be. There's gradations there that you have to train, right? Or you have it in you already. But I think it's a big. I'm sure we'll get into it. I think it's a big mistake, and I've changed my view on this as I've developed as a coach.
Yeah.
To the importance of athleticism in training for all sports, including the ones that are higher on the strength power spectrum.
So walk me through, because a little bit into your first training experience. Like, how did you first view strength? Obviously, you're probably a glutton for punishment because it obviously is there. And I would call this like there's an exceedingly high greed for strength on young men who notice that it is a value, right? It's just like anything. If I got money a certain way and I saw that people really liked that I could make money, that would be the thing that I go after. And I think strength is one of those attributes where you go, if you were good in sales or something, to call you a rainmaker.
Right.
But if you're a strong guy, you are that strong. People want to be around that, whether, for whatever reason, self-preservation,
right,
in a rough neighborhood, or just the I don't know, the absolute aspiration that being around big muscular people gives you, which is like, man, you feel different around these kinds of people. What is it? Your thoughts and your takeaways and your first endeavors, like what were those like, and how do they shape what you do now?
So, I made some very good choices as a young guy because I always knew, or at least I thought I knew, that speed and the ability to jump high were equally as important to me. So at an early age, I based my training around my ability to run and jump and change direction.
Okay.
So I wasn't the guy that went into the gym and all I did was lift weights until I couldn't lift weights anymore. Now, I did lift weights and I was strong early. I think that's also helped me too. I think I got strong. I had an affinity to gain strength pretty easily, which I think allowed me to do less training, and more running and jumping. So, like, I wasn't a hard gainer, which I think helped.
Yeah.
Because I basically would look at, it was simple. Like I would time myself all the time running. My dad would time me because there was no like electric timers back then. And I also measure my jump. And if it started going down, like, I would squat less.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you were making immediately a connection between being overly strong and underpowered.
Yeah, so like it made sense to me because like I can be, like, the strongest I was as a teenager was when I was at my slowest. So I was training for my only powerlifting meet I ever did.
Oh, wow.
And I trained like 3 months just for powerlifting.
Okay.
And I did well. And then when I went back to like regular training, I was slow as shit.
Yeah.
And I said, fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore. And I never powerlifted again, like, competitively. And I was like, I put two and two together. I was like, this much training in this one thing is not helping me with ultimately what I need to be is fast.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was football.
Yeah.
And the faster it's like, and I got this from boxing, right? When I was boxing, you know, with the jab, like my coach, we spent so much time on learning the jab, and he says, look, it's not a strength thing, it's a speed and timing thing. Mm-hmm. He says you can use the jab to control the fight. Mm-hmm. if you know, you don't have to like, and I got this from my dad too about throwing a baseball. You want to throw a baseball harder, you have to relax.
Yes, yeah.
So, you know, all these things in my life, like if I want to throw a baseball faster, I have to relax. If I want to throw a punch better, I have to relax. So I have to do more things that make me, if I want to be faster, I have to learn how to relax. And that's not putting 600 pounds on my back all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I said I made good decisions based on like what I was very intuitive mm-hmm. and able to understand like what the real goal was. Mm-hmm. Now that being said, I was a meathead, mm-hmm. like, you know, because I wanted to be as big as I could, mm-hmm. as strong as I could, as long as I could still run. And that's how I formulated I used my experience, those experiences to kind of formulate my coaching philosophy.
So this isn't far off of, you know, like be as strong as you can, as big as you can, with some kind of measurement of speed and aerobic ability. I don't think anybody, and I say this in a couple different places where I've written about it, but I don't think you can run into problems because the second you put on so much mass that it's hard to produce aerobic or sustain aerobic power, you're really into kind of like an issue. And the second you become so aerobically efficient that you're losing mass, well, it tells you kind of which way to go. And this is to come back to like something that I kind of misunderstood about general physical preparedness. That is the concept.
Yeah.
Right. You're bouncing, kind of rounding out all of the centers of whatever we call it, energy system, but also your phenotype or your somatotype. Yep. Like your body type is going to have a predilection for something. And I think a lot of people use that to decide what they do. So if you're the guy who can run far, you become the runner.
Right.
If you're the guy who jumps high, you become the guy that jumps. If you're a dancer, all of these things, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
And it's, you know, it when things come easy to us, we're more apt to want to do them.
Exactly. And I think it's the antithesis of training.
Yeah, right. Like you want to train what you're not good at.
Exactly. And this is to bring us into kind of like the discussion on strength in among other topics, where I've really tried to, I would say, embolden my concept of strength is to consider it strength expression as a result of fixing your weaknesses.
Strength expression as a result of fixing your weakness. Okay.
Right. So like, let's take something, let's agree just temporarily. I don't agree with the statement, but temporarily saying like the deadlift is a measure of strength in this one. It's true if it's a measure of a deadlift is a good measure of the maximum deadlift. But if we were to watch that lift break down, or we wanted to like get it better, we would look at what the weakest position is.
Right.
And this is, you know, all of the great Soviet kind of scientists discovered this is like, why is it not adding? And sometimes it is, you know, positional, sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's just a accommodating resistance to overcome a position that is more difficult, an angle of biometrics or something like that. And what I would say is like, that is very much true, but let's get more data points. Let's get more spherical with it, as opposed to just this linear thinking of like point A, point B. Let's add geometry to it. And I mean, like, let's blow it out to all the points that we can be weak and strong in all the joint angles with all the movements, and then add all this, you know, fiber disposition and muscle type stuff on top of that. And you go, that's too complex to think about. Okay, where do we need to hone it in then? Because, you know, I'm not going to need maybe a maximal 1 rep max measurement of my external rotation at 120 degree angles or something like that. But maybe I do. or you know what I mean? So like thinking about this is where strength becomes really interesting to me, is because it's really predicated on your ability to diagnose your own weaknesses and understand like, ooh, I'm not good here. Therefore, how can I build up? How can I reinforce this? And then you have to think through the chain, like what kind of stimulus allows my biology to adapt to, you know, this and build up and reinforce it, as opposed to where most people get trapped, I think, is like, well, this is the thing I'm good at, so I'm just going to express that and then excuse it as my strength training. So if I've got, you know, early on a high 1 rep max deadlift, you know, and this, I think I saw this with a fellow that I met, unbelievably talented out of the gates. Like I've never seen anything like it. He worked at a CrossFit gym kind of in the South Valley. I think that thing since has closed down, but I was watching him squat at a competition, and I was like, 540 pound front squat.
Holy shit,
man. And I couldn't tell you how fast it moved. And he like, you know, 670, 680 back squat, no belt, nothing, just just repping, doubles, triples.
Those are big numbers.
And I like, bro, like, what? The question got, you know, I see the strongest dude because the measurement is still that is a valid measurement in that case. And, you know, what are you doing? And he goes, you know, the first time I ever back squat, I back squat 405. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's different. Yeah. And he goes, the second time I back squat was 7 years later, and it was 500. And I was like, what? Walk me. And he's like, high school. They just had him try it. He did it. But I think the strength coach was probably pretty smart. He goes, you don't need to do that anymore. You like already do that. And then so he built up this big thing where he could do this trick essentially. And then, you know, fast forward the 8 or 9 years later between these. And then he's like, well, I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I'll just try strength training for a bit, and immediately put on 100, 200 pounds on these lifts. But also not good at coaching a squat because he'd never had to problem solve it.
You never had to practice.
He saw somebody who couldn't squat 200 pounds and goes, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Right.
You know, I see this a lot, and I would look at it like my squat has never been very strong. Like it's never been.
Done it a lot.
Done it. I've gone from, I would say that, you know, I have this story that is pretty funny. I would do like 10 by 10s at like 225 and
that German volume.
Yeah. And I would run like a mile in between. I was you want to talk about a glutton for punishment. Yeah. I would do 10 by 10s and run a mile between the sets of 10, just to like run 10 miles, do 100 reps. And when I look at it, I was like 185 pounds at the time, endurance athlete, but trying to,
right.
I was endurancing my way to strength.
Were you on the bike at that point?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I was racing quite a bit, and still trying to like be what I would call GPP. And because that was what I could fathom, that was strength to me. I would call it the endurance of strength because I was just doing massive sets and massive reps. And
it's a version of strength. I mean,
something. I don't know what it was. I couldn't describe even today what it was. I would call it hardship. Hardship training.
Okay.
You know, 2-hour sessions, stuff like that. It was super fun. And then I got this job, and before I met this strength coach that I met, I was training with this just strong ass bodybuilder. You know, I found a strongman gym down in Cape Town, and you could tell in his gym, this was phenomenal. I walked in looking for a gym to use for my client, and I looked at the dumbbells, and he had like 2.5-inch grip, swivel grip dumbbells up to like, I guess in kilo, he had a 60 and 65 and 70 kilo dumbbells, fat grip. And I was like, man,
nice.
Dude, this is like, who the fuck uses that? And he was just built different, rugby player, but built different, bodybuilder at this point. And so he's like, we hit it off immediately. Like this guy, Alex Azim, he's a super cool guy. And we just like, I was like, how do you train? You know, I train totally fucking different. I can't use any of this equipment. Show me what you're doing. So we started swapping sessions, and super fun because I would gut him on a bike and take his life away doing like IWTs and these aerobic sessions that he had never felt anything like that. He thought he was like saw death for the first time. And he took me through he's like, let's do a leg session. And I was like, oh, we do something called motherfucking leg day where I'm from. He's like, cool. That sounds awesome. I just call it leg day. He's like, all right. So I was thinking about my 10 by 10s, and he goes, let's just warm up with a couple sets. And he's like, just sets of 5. And so we go like 60, 60 kilo, do 5. Yeah, cool. He throws on. Next set is 100. And I'm like, what happened to all the other
the other kilos?
I was getting up to the thing, and he watches me do 5 at 100, and he goes, you should try like squatting all the way. Because I was, already protecting to try to get this number. Like, okay, I'm just going to stay here. And then he goes, 140. And then he goes, I think he made the jump to 180.
Yeah.
And at 180, he was doing the fastest sets of 5 that I've seen. And I mean like ass to grass, full position, just like as upright as possible. So we start with this 5x5 session, and then we go to like a 3x12 Bulgarian split squat at 60 kilos. I fell down the fucking stairs.
Yeah.
It was so incredibly difficult. And in my head, I went, okay, I've been dishonest about what I have been doing and calling it strong. I've been calling 100 kilos or 225, what do you want to call it? I've been saying that I've been doing this thing, but I haven't been doing that. I've been mimicking it. And this became kind of the revelation of like, I don't know what I'm talking about with strength. And some people really are able to show you that. And that was like a magical moment for me to be like, okay, no one fucking cares where you're from. They don't care what t-shirt you have on. They don't care what gym you go to. It matters what you can do and what you say you can do. There's this honesty factor that just became so relevant to me in that lesson. Now, from that point, I was like, I'm going to get strong. And that's kind of where I shifted away from endurance sports, because I was working so much in gyms, it just made sense. And I really got out, I dedicated myself to being, I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to, I went back and started rereading literature. But again, I missed the part that warned me of certain things. And I went right to the part that, what gets you strong? And I was like, what sets, what reps, what progressions,
right?
What does it? Is it the movement? That was interesting to me, because it really, like, I wouldn't change it for anything, to be honest. I learned strength a really difficult way. I didn't have good mentors in it. It was all, trial and error, which not that yours wasn't, but it seems like you had like.
No, I had people along the way that were, I could check in with, and then, so I wasn't out there by myself.
Yeah.
So
I think that's probably why it's so important. Funny enough, before we even met, I watched tons of stuff on you. There's not much in the US when it comes to weightlifting. So when you do look stuff up, it's you, it's Bergener, it's like a couple of guys. And there's like a stylistic thing that comes from it. And I think because you're kind of like hard-nosed about, you just fucking got to get after it. Your attitude really reflected mine, which is like, you had kind of a no bullshit thing. There was this hard work involved into it, and it wasn't magic. You weren't, you didn't have a prescriptive formula. You were really about how I heard you talk. I remember one thing, maybe it's something you wrote. I can't remember where I saw it. I know it was you, but you talked about, identifying the problem and then working that problem, not just imagining that you're getting better by doing the full movement. And I think you were talking about
the ratios.
Yes. Yeah.
I was talking about the ratios. It's how that's the way we identify weakness in weightlifting.
Yeah. Okay.
Certain exercises have a very strong correlation.
Front squat clean.
Front squat clean, or lift from the boxes. So it's not just strength, but it's also the ability to produce velocity and speed and position. So there are certain exercises that identify these weaknesses, and that's a way, by determining the ratio. There's certain ratios that we look for, and if something is out of whack, it's a sign that there's a weakness. So at the when a weightlifter's good, I'm not saying maybe they're not elite yet, but when their technique is consistent through all ranges of intensity up until about 92%, then the mistakes they make are mistakes of weakness, because they're consistent through all ranges, and then it's heavy. Something is going to show up. If you're a beginner, you're inconsistently inconsistent, right? The mistakes aren't because you're too weak; they're just because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, a technical
It's
deficiency
technical
skill.
error.
Yeah.
So then you can use the same exercises to deal with both issues, or just used a little bit differently. But as an elite athlete in weightlifting, if there the week when the weaknesses show up, it on the supplemental exercises, it helps guide the direction of the training, right? So you're not, because you have a finite amount of energy to spend per day, per week, per cycle. So you have to, and most of that, as much of it has to go to doing the snatch and the clean and jerk, because lifting heavy snatch and clean jerk is a skill unto itself.
Right. Yeah, correct.
So then you have to say, oh, well, if that's the case, then I can't waste any time on shit that they don't need.
Right.
So how do we focus all the rest of that energy on the things that they need to get better? So I've always taken that approach to all training.
Yeah.
Obviously not except for my fucking self, because I'm an idiot. But for, all like my strength and conditioning athletes, and, I try to look at where do we, based on this performance in this thing, what does that tell me about what they need? And what direction does the training have to go, so we're not wasting time?
I kind of think about it. Maybe this is it's kind of like playing Clue, right? Like you're like you got to figure out what part, who did, what's responsible, where the location is, the orientation, and what the weapon is in order to like combat it.
And it's a lot of guessing, but the better, like the more you do it, more expose yourself to it, the better guesser you become.
Yeah, I've heard really insane on the ratios topic, because I used yours. The original insight that I had from your ratios discussion was, I've never really missed a snatch from a high hang, even like 95%. Right, I was hitting 95% of my max all the time from a high hang, but I missed power all the time. Like some days I just didn't even have a 70%.
Yeah, I mean, if I hear that, I'm saying squat's low.
And it is.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, I took that, except I just started pulling power from shorter, trying to like increase I was looking at it like it was, I needed to increase velocity to get the bar.
Yeah.
But probably incorrect in my application. What I took from yours and a couple of the coaches was, I don't need a program. On the day, I just need to look at what I think the limitation is and then address that limitation on the day. So I would do soft maxes, work up to heavy, which most people take this incorrectly. I'm not trying to max out. I'm trying to identify the fact that I have a technical limitation or a muscular or energetic limitation.
But that's a max.
Right. And
doing it shitty is not, even if you make it, is not a max.
Exactly. So, if I had any hiccups in the movement, I would say that's past it. I would back off. Right. That would be my soft max. And then I'd be like, okay, where do I feel the limitation? Back to your kind of like, I developed a high amount of intuition of like, today I'm pulling really good power. Therefore, maybe I should do the opposite, or maybe I reinforce it. It just really depends on how I felt on the day. Every once in a while, I think strength training is about stroking the ego to make it. Can't always be beating yourself down. We got to leave training 99% of the time feeling good about what we're doing.
Well, especially if you're coaching other athletes. If they're paying you, you want them to come back, right? And if you're in a team, like in a team situation, you want guys to feel good, especially young boys, right? Young girls. You want them to feel good about what they're doing. Yeah. So there's a bit of a, it's not always just science and numbers, right?
That's the rare style of coaching. I come from the coaching background where we don't make money. I just comment on people's videos. No, I'm just
right. Well, you learn the EQ part of coaching later.
Yes. Sometimes.
Sometimes when it's appropriate.
It's a long arc to good coaching, which maybe we can get in. Like how now you coach multiple different disciplines.
Yes.
Right. So talk to me through that. Like how has coaching changed for you over the years? Just like how has coaching morphed for you? Because essentially how I imagine it, it's like the avenue that you get into the sport, or you express the sport, or you monetize the sport. And then for me, and I suspect for you too, because you've gone through so many different avenues, coaching actually becomes the thing, not the sport. It's almost like the sport becomes the metaphor for guiding other people.
You know, look, I wish I can still be an athlete, right? Like I miss being having that level of vitality.
What is it? Is it the feeling?
Yeah. So I think it's a couple things for me. Like, the sports that I chose, this is going to sound fucked up, but like the ability to physically dominate another human and like see like their soul leave their body is like, I get, it does something to me. Like I love it.
It's your adrenochrome.
Yeah. That was part of it. And just like, I miss feeling wind going through my hair because I'm running outside and feeling that ability to move my body that quickly. I miss just the physicality of being an athlete. I'm still strong, like in the sense of moving a barbell.
Yeah, sure.
But I've never felt weaker, because of it. Because I have physical, like I have orthopedic stuff going on.
Sure. Yeah. There's limitations.
Yeah. So that being said, coaching is the thing that gives me joy because I can make other people feel that.
Right. It's a transference.
Not the dominance thing, because that would be weird.
Sure.
But like the ability to have the ability to dominate somebody.
Yeah.
Or dominate a situation.
I understand. Yeah, it's not. I think what you're saying, and I see that, like by helping somebody else achieve the sensations that gave you great satisfaction, you get just a little bit of that.
It gives me enough that I don't hang myself.
Yeah.
Right. Like which is part. I think what drove me to become good at this.
Yeah.
Because if I couldn't get people now. One thing I will say, in my coaching, generally speaking, people don't leave me, especially in weightlifting. Yeah. And in high school, I have them for, I'll have them up to 6 years if I work with them in middle school.
Yeah.
So I could see their growth over that. That's a long enough time. Right, is 4 or 6 years to really see that arc there, how they develop. And I wanted to be really good at that so I can actually do it. And part of it is altruistic. Like I want to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
Like it's not just
selfish.
It's not just altruistic for I'm doing this because it's for the greater good. It's selfish.
Totally.
There's a selfish component to it as well.
For sure.
So doesn't mean that, I'm not doing this to help people, but I'm also doing it to help me.
Yeah.
Because I can't do those things anymore. So from broad stroke, that's what coaching is for me. And, I have my weightlifting still. It's not my business.
Yeah.
Weightlifting was my business for almost 20 years. But I do it now on my terms, right? I'm not beholden to keeping a brick and mortar open like I was before. And I'm back at coaching high school kids, which is my favorite, part, because the coaching is the easy part. They're not, it's not weightlifting.
Yeah.
Like to me, the challenge is how to it really develops your ability to be a leader and build culture and the organization part of it, all those things that are hard for me because weightlifting doesn't have that. Like you don't need that in weightlifting. So really it's developing another part of the coaching, which is interesting because most people that get into coaching, they suck. Like even the top guys, right? They suck at the technical part and they're great at the culture and the leadership part.
Yeah.
Apparently that's good enough because they're paying guys $1 million a year to do it.
Sure.
But like for me, that was the challenge. I'm like, I'm not going to get. I could teach. I've taught guys with cerebral palsy how to lift. And so I don't lack for the ability to teach people movement. So that's not why I like the high school stuff. It's all those other things that I never really developed.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is like the metaphor, and I mean, you could talk about this in a lot of, I think, different degrees. The metaphor for strength training, it so parallels almost every endeavor that we do.
Yeah.
Because anything that you want a reaction from, you have a very specific input that leads to an output, right? And it really is a condition off of, if you keep putting inputs in and you're not getting the output, it's the wrong input, right? It's very
right. So it's anything, like
anything is like that. People tend to think I describe strength training like this because a lot of people you got to show up and do the work, to some degree, right? Like if you're off the couch, yeah, anything will work. Anything will, from 0, almost anything is 1. But very quickly, you're going to find that like, if I say like, like I want to build a house, and you're like, okay, well, first you got to have a foundation. And you're like, okay, how do I do that? You're like, dig. If I just go dig random holes in the ground for years on end, that does not equal a foundation.
No.
And I find that people just showing up and doing random things, and then they're like, I didn't get anything out of it, or I got hurt. Even worse, I got hurt.
Right.
And you go, well, yeah, but the test isn't that you can just work hard. It's that you can work hard at the right thing.
To me, it's the hard work isn't the problem. It's the consistency, right? It's the, and not every day is hard work, but the ability to show up.
Yeah.
Be present, not just show up physically.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But be present in the moment and with what you're doing every day.
This is like kind of a business and I guess language. This came one of my business coaches. He talks about the 3 C's for success, and we're talking. It could be business, but it could be in physical success as well. And it really hit a point home because I think this hits it perfectly. Which consistency is the first one.
Yeah.
Right. You have to do it repeatedly.
And for a number of reasons, not because that's how you make things work. It's also how you know what doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it sets a rhythm.
Yeah.
And everything that is living loves rhythms, right? Like everything falls into these rhythms. And why they're so powerful is they create grooves in which you can cycle in and out, and it like kind of sets the tempo for you. So showing up every day, it's super important. I think one thing he goes immediately to is that the difference, though, is a lot of people just show up every day and then they get frustrated because it's not turning out. They get in the rhythm, but they're not saying, or they're not doing the next 2 things, which are committing to it. Rich, it was like, that's your intensity level. And they're also not clear what they're doing. There's no clarity in what they're doing. So the 3 C's are consistency, commitment, and clarity. And through those through things, you can derive whatever output you want. I think that really is relevant to strength, because if you show up every day, you're obviously doing the work, but the commitment is almost about being intelligent, or at least driving effort and intensity toward it. And clarity is understanding that the goal needs to be very specific about what you're trying to achieve, which I think, man, I didn't have that for 90% of the time that I was training. I wanted something out of strength, respect, these general things. But if I would have just been like, no, I want to achieve this, it would have honed my focus, and it probably would have, I can't say this for sure, but it probably would have led to a lot less errors. Because if there's just a general goal, man, you can end anywhere and be dissatisfied or satisfied. That's just up to where your brain's at. And if you're like me, I'm never satisfied. So therefore, if I'm not very clear about what I'm trying to get out of something, then I'm not going to ever be satisfied, which means I'm not doing anything worthwhile. I'm just digging holes, essentially.
It's funny you say that because, I was an athlete till I was 31. And then it ended abruptly because of an injury that it had to stop. And then, for the next 19 years, I didn't really have any of those C's, right? I was digging random holes. I would train, didn't know what I was doing, had no why, did no clarity as to like what am I trying to do? What am I doing this for? And I didn't really like to train because I trained before because I had this carrot dangling in front of me.
Yeah.
And it really clarified everything. It made me, I knew exactly what I needed to do, how much, when I needed to do it. With absent that, like I wasn't the guy that just loved to go to the gym just for the sake of going to the gym. It, although I spent my whole life in one, it wasn't until I was right around 50 that I got that back, and I started to focus on the things that were important again, and had nothing to do with the weight necessarily on the bar. I started to look at physiological things like body fat and and the things that I can measure. I got excited. I'm like, well, fuck, I can measure these things with accuracy. And I'll know exactly if I'm making progress or not. I'm like, fuck, this is what I was looking for. And it almost didn't matter what I did, as long as I can do it and move the needle on the things that were important. Yeah. Right? So I realized that killing myself all the time with heavy weight didn't allow me to show up every day.
Shocker. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Right, I started doing things that supported the clear vision that I had of the direction I was going.
Yeah.
But so for somebody that lives in that world and did it at a high level and coached it at a high level, I still didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't it's hard.
It's very
like it's there. I think it's up to you and people like me and that to guide people down that road, to tell them what's important.
I think you're right. I want you to talk me through one of those things is really interesting, and then it'll come kind of like right into what you've been doing recently with writing and talking about coaching, and that is the sport thing. And this is where obviously we're both. I mean, I just wanted to do every sport.
Yeah.
And not the mainstream. I mean, I was very, rebellious. I didn't play team sports. I went a little bit different track, but anything that was like anti-sport, which is still a sport, skateboarding, snowboarding, like just the weirdest thing, martial arts was a big one for me. Anything that was kind of like a fuck you to the norm, I was super into. And, what I found, and it's taken me a really long time to rationalize this, is that, you mentioned it just as like, man, when I had this really clear picture inside of the vessel of sport, it was just so easy. And this is absolutely a phenomenon that I think needs to be addressed. There's nothing wrong with sport. I mean, there's lots of things wrong with sport, but I'm not denigrating sport itself. I think sport might be one of the greatest vehicles for self-development. I just don't think that vehicle has any windows, if that makes sense.
No, good.
So it gets you to a place that is very valuable, but there's very little awareness about what comes after or where you're at once you get there.
I think it depends.
Okay.
So for instance, with my boys, with my high school boys, I am very, very conscious about talking to them about how this fits in to the greater good. Like, the standards that I said, be on time, be prepared, know your job and finish your job.
So I'll clarify, because I think you're right. So to clarify, I think the sport is the vehicle, but if you have a good driver, right, you have a good coach to basically say, hey, this is what's coming up in the terrain, that is a little bit different. And, I again, I'll say to guy, I did not have many mentors in sport. I really figured out a lot of this stuff by just doing it the hard way.
Yeah.
And having all the identity loss issues. And that's kind of, again, there's nothing wrong with the sport, but when I see it now as the sales pitch for physicality and self-development, like, oh, just sign up for a 5K, or you should compete in this because it will give you this sense of self. I go, that's a little bit dangerous. And not that it's dangerous in the normalized way or common language way, but it's really gonna, there'll be a crisis that occurs at the end of that journey within the sport. And why I think that's important is because we're separating from how how physical ability was developed for the asset of a society. Physicality is just like probably one of the most important aspects of living in small, contained societies. What you can give for value and what you can do for your community is quite literally the lifeblood. Your ability to hunt and gather and work, and that's put in relation. It's like what you can give is what you get out of it. And when we kind of the Industrial Revolution kind of reset that to a large degree, we became very specialized. I see sport as a byproduct of industrialization. It's more like insect species than it is human species. Humans are very, very general animals. We do not run the fastest. We are not the strongest, but we use our physicality tactically, strategically, because we have these like big frontal cortexes that are able to decipher, kind of predict the future or lay out a plan of the future. We can use our limited physicality in very specialized ways. And ever since kind of the Industrial Revolution and the advent of sport has become entertainment, and a specialized entertainment at that, which case, just like any profession, the limitations of it are clear. And I think by using a professional sport, great. If you're going to make $100 million playing basketball,
right,
that is a leverage that not a lot of people have the chance to do. It might be worth destroying your body in order to get this wealth. Again, that's up to the player.
Sure.
In I think it should be laid out, but that there is a exchange that happens that I've seen happen so many times where somebody's just promoted to do this thing, and then when they get to the end of it, you see it go south everywhere.
Yes.
You say it play out positively very few times.
Yes.
So it's one of those leverages that you go, man, should I put everything on black?
Right.
Yeah. No one could say don't, because in a few circumstances that has turned out wildly positive. In most circumstances, the house always wins. So when I look at sport, I say if sport takes away from the arc of your life experience, it doesn't enhance it. Now, I think it has enhanced your life. Like, I'm not saying that it hasn't. I think in most cases where I see people ruin their body for a hobby, we should have a concern over, how did this happen? How was somebody convinced of doing something, of wagering essentially their physicality for something that doesn't have a good arc to it? And the way I'll put this into, kind of how I've come to think of strength, because strength is absolutely one of the biggest predictors of longevity, right? But then why does what we naturally teach in society and culture teach us to wager it incorrectly? And we've talked about this a little bit before, where I talk about, it's basically like we tell people, yeah, being strong is so important, but we don't teach them that the maximal expression of strength will take away from the arc. As in, it's more important that you deadlift 300 pounds in your 70s than deadlift 700 pounds in your 30s.
Right. Yeah. I agree. And I think, I I don't disagree. You know, like I look at myself now, you know, I've had hip replacement, knee replaced, and, you know, my shoulder's bone on bone, and you know, these are all byproducts of the life that I chose. I don't necessarily regret those choices, but, you know, if now look, you know, paying it forward, you know, I think I do things differently.
Yeah.
You know, with my athletes, because I'd like to minimize the risk that happens to them. It doesn't guarantee anything. But you know, to your point about like that, an amateur risking that arc, you know, when we talk about it here, you're absolutely right. It's stupid. But, you know, we talk about the why, like, you know, when I got my powerful why of why I wanted to train, thankfully it was, you know, things that weren't going to make me worse. It was actually going to help me be more capable. But like, you know, if somebody if their thing is, you know, I'll tell you a quick.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the kids that, and I wrote about this in my book. There was a kid that would come in to train with us when I was training as a weightlifter. And quiet kid, he'd come in, he worked his ass off. And you know, he got bigger and stronger. And, you know, nobody knew, like, he didn't want to compete. He just wanted to train. And so he would compete in like our little gym meets because my coach, if you were going to lift, you had to compete. So he was fine with that, but he didn't want to. And then I don't know how long he trained, a year and a half, 2 years maybe, I don't even know. And one day he just disappeared, didn't show up. You know, he would show up every day, he never missed. One day he didn't show up on a Monday, just did stop showing up. Nobody knew what happened. Like, this was before cell phones, or like not everybody had a cell phone, so like there wasn't that. And then, I don't know, a few months later, I used to go to this, there was a Dollar Chinese place right on Victory Boulevard in Van Nuys. And I would go there because I can get a ton of food for, you know, like $5. And he was in there. And I don't remember his name, but, you know, I was happy to see him, start talking, and I said, hey, you know, what happened? Like, why'd you stop coming? And I get emotional a bit talking about this. So he told me this story. He's like, yeah, you know, I live with my dad and my younger brother. And my dad was a drunk. And like, he'd get violent. And he would beat us up. And then he said, I just, you know, nobody would do anything about it. And I just wanted to train enough to get strong enough so that, you know, my dad wouldn't touch my younger brother. And he said, yeah, like, you know, that weekend that, you know, Monday we trained, you know, we're off Sunday. So that Sunday, my dad came home, he was drunk, and he, you know, and I beat him up. And then he never touched us again. And he says, you know, I didn't need to train anymore.
That's amazing.
So, like, my point of the story is, like, if somebody's got a why, it might not make sense to you and me.
Totally, yeah.
But if that's the thing that blows their hair back, then who am I to say that's stupid?
I don't think I would ever talk anybody out of.
But if you could design their life, I wouldn't design it to where they do any one thing that's going to affect their arc in a negative way.
Yeah, I would say just based off of my experience, and this is obviously like I feel like I hit the crossroads at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, it before the degradation. Yeah. But also on top of phenomenal experiences, international competitions, winning medals, stuff. Like, I've done physical things that gave me a taste, not like total dominance, but a taste of like, I feel good about the hard work I put in, and there was a good reflection from my effort, even if it was a plastic gold medal or whatever the cheap thing that they throw at you for doing, you know, whatever you sign up for. So I feel like, although, man, when I talk to some friends, you know, NBA players that are retired, and I'll ask them all the time, like, What was it like? You know, crowd, like a stadium with 35,000 people, and they're all just freaking the fuck out because you're down by 3,
Right.
and then you nail it and you win. You become something
God.
better than
Become
yourself.
godlike
Divine.
in that moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think anybody can deny that. You can talk about the superficiality of sport, but in reality,
Spoken by people who have never been in the arena.
and by people that don't understand that although it's an abstraction of an idea, you are living up to the highest ideal of a society, which is in the minute that we need you, you came through for a people. That's really what
I get goosebumps
Yeah.
thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm not a guy, like I don't have any like I never saved any of that stuff. I don't have like anything. You go to my house, there's nothing on around that you would know that I was an athlete.
Yeah.
That's not what I did it for. But I did it, you know, just to see what I can do, and for that feeling
Yep.
of, I'm gonna fucking cry here. that feeling of like, you know, I'm not a religious guy, but I look at how people, when they talk about God and what their faces look like, and that moment, like when they hit the game winner, you look at the crowd, they have the same face, you know, and I don't care who the fuck you are, you know, and you're lying if you say otherwise. But to have that for just a moment, fuck, man.
I said it before. I mean, there's never been there's never been a weak hero. In the moment that you are called a hero, called upon to be greater than yourself, is the moment that you're the strongest. The moment that you resist you hold yourself. This is why I say in my definition that strength is really about the ability to hold. You're holding the ideal more than anything. And that's why, like, I had to come to a definition that was beyond physiology, that was beyond just the physical. And I needed to connect them because of this exact sensation that you're talking about. The thing that you're talking about that gives you chills, that like makes you light up when you're like, oh, it's that. To me, these virtues, these like abilities, these attributes that we can develop as a human being, these are beyond words, and therefore we really need to find ways to describe them in order to foster them and keep them going. And for me, when I redefined it for myself, and I'm not saying anybody else has to take this definition, but it really did help me bridge that gap between what we're talking about, which is like, why am I pushing against this barbell? What am I trying to do, right? As soon as I understood that the way that I hold myself under a barbell is the same way that I hold my ideals in the face of consequences, and the way that I hold my spirit, for lack of a better term, in the face of like annihilation, though all of those things have to do with each other. Now it's not, again, based off of the definition of, you know, you're just supposed to be as strong as possible. No, there's a time that holding yourself will break you. And so really the classic tale, there's multiple tales of this warning of the hubris of strength. You know, being able to fly close to the sun does what to you?
Right. Well, Icarus found that out, right?
Yeah, and I said in the first episode about Milo of Croton, which is like, you know, these are, why are we being told these stories? And not only just being told them, why are we reliving them as avatars of these attributes? And it really is because I think these are the things that, you know, they are responsible for the real human progress. It's not technological advancement that progresses humans. It's really not. It's the human qualities that do, and we could call them the virtuous things. There's compassion and forgiveness and love and strength and like determination. All of these things, that's what creates technological advancement. That those ideals are what hold up the discovery of cures and the philanthropic endeavors that I think most people do. And I think, funny enough, these training for something as simple as strength starts that it starts that in young men and women to like show them how to hold themselves. I think that's the start of the mechanics for like a greater life. And that's why I would say very careful with where I push people to the degree of strength, because there's a greediness to it. There's this like, well, if some is good, then more is better.
Right.
To a high degree, I think, yes. And then there's that end point where you're like, okay, now we've gone too far.
Well, I mean, to your point, like the clarity part, like, you know, making people understand what we're doing, why we're doing it. And, you know, I really like what you said about, you know, the driver of the bus, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, being on a bus with no windows. You know, when you first said it, my first response was like, no way. But then, you know, but now I process it a little bit, but, you know, I having that driver, mm-hmm. especially with young men. Mm-hmm. I mean, I train mostly young men. To circle back to before is, you know, I think that for me, you know, part of I don't want them to be like I was, in the way that, you know, we're on the bus, closed windows, I'm driving the bus and I can't really see out. I'm on a track and I don't know where the track is going, but I just, like, I don't want to be, I want this to be at this age more meaningful. Mm. Not just because I want to play football.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I want this to be because, you know, I have to do 50 up downs when I'm 10 seconds late, because you have to organize your life. You have to prepare to be on time. Mm-hmm. You know, it's important. You know, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I never put my athletes in any risk of being hurt, but I do put them in uncomfortable situations, and I'll talk them through it. I'm like, look, this is going to be uncomfortable. Here's what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
And when you feel this way, it's okay. And when you feel this way and when you start to lose your breath, you'll get scared. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So here's how to get through it, because you get inoculated to these feelings a little bit. Yeah. And when they happen outside of here, you know, when something very stressful happens and you start to lose your breath, mm-hmm. you're like, okay, no, I know what this is, and I'm okay. I can, you know, I've dealt with this before.
Yeah.
And then you can take your emotions out of it, calm down, and solve the problem. Mm-hmm. So I talk to them in this way, mm-hmm. because it's got to be more than adding more weight on the bar. But adding more weight on the bar is right now not the only, but it's the vehicle. It's the thing mm-hmm. that I can create these scenarios with.
Yeah, it's like, if we were all fortunate enough to have somebody as a guide that recognizes that the weight is simply it's an analogy for a burden. Yeah, it's an analogy for a burden.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very good tool, actually. And to recognize,
but often misused, to your point.
Easily. And here's why I think it is. Just like, there's nothing that the traditional methodology speaks specifically about what I'm talking about. I think after it passes a layer of industrialized fitness, is the way I would call it, mechanized fitness, like impersonal fitness, which is we're trying to scale and, you know, make these products that people can consume, like gym memberships and programs. And through that lens, we really dilute what the reality of training is.
Yeah.
And then we get into a spot that is not well guided.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, it's misrepresented. So now when you think somebody who's strong in our culture, world's strongest man, most people will go, oh, he's an idiot. He's so, like, it's stupid strength, right? He's so dumb. that's why he doesn't know that, like, I think how people perceive it is like he's lifting that rock off the ground because he's so dumb he doesn't know he could get hurt. Or in that's the opposite of strength expression at that level. It's highly intelligent. They are so absolutely intelligent about the risk that they're taking. And this comes, this might be a spoiler alert for potentially another episode that I would do on strength, but strength is the opposite of what the counterintuitive behavior trait that comes from strength is sensitivity.
Yes.
An absolute sensitivity, and developed in such a backwards way than people think. Because when something gets heavy or hard, what do we tell them? We tell them to shut up and just do it. We tell them to like numb the pain, forget the signal. In real strength, that is going to continue to progress in a manner that is like so beneficial. You're actually, if you're guided well, you're like, no, don't shut it off, but engage with it.
Yeah.
Like, what is the pain telling you? Is it saying that you're about to get hurt? Because you have to listen to that one. Or is it the attribute, is it the dichotomy of your character that doesn't want to do the hard thing?
Right.
Because that is the thing that we need to have a conversation with. We're not David Goggins our way out of this by just telling it to shut up and kind of like, you can't. You'll self-destruct. And this is where I find the I would say the territory that's going to be gained in strength training and coaching is over the reality of building a vessel or a body that has the trajectory to live the life that you want to live. Not just one way, not just athlete or just not like
100%.
Because in the same sense of balance, like I'm not trying to live to be 150 like Brian Johnson either, or not die. That doesn't entice me. I think life is beautiful because of its limitation and its time, right? That's like,
yes,
the flower is, fleeting. The cherry blossom is going to go away, which is why you take the time to notice it, because it's very short. Life is like that, but there is this trajectory that I think if you're well prepared and you understand, the downsides of what you're risking, you can at least aim it correctly. You can hit the mark that you're trying to mark, and I think a lot of people fall short. And that is what I think is unfortunate about the kind of the culture of strength training and conditioning and like kind of this it's fitness industry that really has taken over the real conversation. I think people have known it for a long time. I think people have always recognized that they lift something heavy and they look at each other and they're like, how did you do that? And they go, well, I don't know. And then it's introspective. Then it goes, well, I hold it like this. You talk mostly about the physicality of the technique of it. I got under it like this, and then what'd you do? You're like, well, then I just tried hard. And you're like, what does that mean? Because what are we talking about? That's agency. You're like, I overwrote my brain's first hesitation, and I said, no, you can do greater. Now I have a metaphor that breaks the limitations of my original, preconception of my world. That is just absolutely, for me, the diabolical part about training strength. And this is why when people are like, you do strength training, you get strong, and you're like, yes, but not probably how you're thinking about it. Because when I load a barbell, which I still do, I'm how can I make this a more powerful lesson as opposed to how can I just load more weight?
Yeah, I hear you. And we talked about, just the affecting your arc over a long period of time. For me, one thing I didn't mention, part of my approach to how I did things up until I retired, to be quite honest, so I never thought I would live past 30.
Yeah.
So in fact, I had friends, we all had a kind of like a death pool. Mm-hmm. And, I won like $500 when I turned.
Because people are like, yeah, you're for sure
right.
not going to live.
So, when that didn't happen, that was a big part of why I did what I did and how I did it.
Yeah.
And, it took me a long time to kind of sit with that, and it helped formulate my training methodology because, to your point, from a broad perspective, we want to make, we're changing homeostasis, right? So we can determine what that wants to look. If you're an endurance athlete, then changing your homeostasis looks different than it does for making you stronger. But at the end of the day, we're adding a stress to the body that creates a new normal.
Yeah.
So and this is where I started to think about training drug-free athletes. So I'm thinking to myself, well, external stressors like drugs create a physiological response in the body. Right? The cells that it's affecting don't care if it's from a needle or if it's from
endogenous
something else.
Yeah.
So I started to think in those terms. So I'm saying, well, do you have to put your foot on the gas pedal all the way down at 100 miles an hour to make these changes? Can you, if it's just about stress, manipulating stress, then let's find the stressors that we can use that allow us to maintain chase strength instead of running away from weakness. Right? So I started to think about training in those terms, like, well, it's just about stress. Let's figure out what the stresses we can use without getting you a knee and a hip replacement.
Yeah.
Is it possible? It starts with, is it possible? So, I think that how we mix the drink, how much of this, how much of that it requires some elegance in how you mix things, and you have to be paying attention. You have to understand the stress responses. You have to understand what the goal is. You have to understand that, what are the limitations. You have to understand, how to get somebody to continue to endure this while keeping them able to endure it.
Yeah, I think you bring it we're basically like walking pharmacies, right? We have this endogenous, and biology is just fascinating like that. Essentially, like whatever we're receiving, we're like releasing a host of drugs of some sort. And what I find is that physical training is one of the most powerful drugs.
Oh, for sure.
As an input. And so really, and this gets like wild when you look at like the root word for pharmacy is pharmakon, right? Which this is the first like double meaning word in Greek literature.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Pharmakon, which means drug essentially, both means poison and the cure. And so
it's all about the dose.
Exactly. So when we're looking at like the pharmacological dose response we're getting from training, that's like saying something like, this, whatever, this antibiotic is poisonous. And you're like, well, you took way too much. Right. And this is like, I don't want to sound like that guy, like, which is like back squat. I don't think back squatting is bad for you. I think people misunderstand.
Doing it 8 times a week is probably not the best.
Right. I'm just saying, like, if you're hitting the needle every day, it's probably not the right drug for you.
Right.
In which case, like, let's find the drugs that release the benefits from dosing.
100. This is how this is how training is designed.
Yes.
You look at what's the end result you want, and you work backwards from there. Like, what needs to change?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what are the stressors we need to make those changes? How do we combine them? What's the amount? What's the all these things?
Yeah, you're going to chem school.
Yes,
right. You're like,
it's 100%, and that's what programming is.
Yeah.
And if you take that approach, more times than not, you'll guess right.
So this is kind of wild. To fulfill this analogy, there's always guys. I'm interested in obviously a lot of random subjects, but one of them could be like on psychedelic use, and you get these. I mean, there's forums, and you can read about what people are experiencing, and it's wild. One of these drugs that I'm not interested in whatsoever is called Angel's Bells.
Oh boy,
or doTERRA.
What is it?
doTERRA. It's doTERRA. I'm mixing it with the essential oils company. It's not that. It's not doTERRA. It's
right.
like doTERRA or something. But
it's a plant.
It's known as Angel's Bells. It's a flower, and it is an absolute like psychosis-inducing drug. Now, here's where it gets wild.
Who the fuck wants to do that?
If you can get the dose right, it can be probably one of the most insane experiences that you could have. The problem is that it's so sensitive that in the concentration in the flower is so different that if you make a tea out of it,
right,
you don't know if you have 1 dose or 50.
Oh,
and so there's people that have, and it's one of the kind of it has a lot of history. And when you read about people's using it, you're like, the stories are wild. Like 12 weeks of absolute open eye hallucinations. People have to lock themselves in their room because bugs are. It's like nightmarish experiences. And then also this like blissful, life-changing, whatever. Not that drug matters, but you start reading these experiences with people. And I always have related them to training. Like you find the thing that you relate to, and then you try to get your experience from that dose. And I'm a generalist, so I love different things from different attributes, but I'm not a high doser. Well, to some people it'd be high doser, but I don't like in training. I'm not an extremist. I'm actually a minimalist. I want the least amount of substance or training to get the experience out of it. And most people I think are blunt instruments. They go, my thing is this, therefore they have to ramp up the dose so high that it becomes actually quite dangerous. Like ultra runners are probably ultra runners and like strength athletes, like the spectrum, right? You got these guys that are like, in order to get what they need, they got to run 250 miles. And you go, that's an experience. I wouldn't take away from it because it's somebody's experience. But we're made to believe that this like this precise experience is the most beneficial as opposed to the broad one. And I don't think there's a hierarchy there. I think they're just different. Interestingly enough, you had a high dose and you were very extreme in your expression of it. And that led you to a different experience, which I find is like, well, that's what makes your experience so valuable because you've been to the extreme end.
And I know it's not for everybody.
Right. Yeah. And you're also saying don't not do it because it obviously got a lot of benefit, which brings me to your book, which is interesting because how long, I mean, this is essentially your life.
Yeah.
Under a bar.
Yeah, pretty much.
Walk me through this because this is great. You've been working on it for years.
Yeah, I worked on it for like 7 years,
okay,
on and off. Not because it took that long, just because it was fit and starts and life gets in the way. The barbell for me, provided me a spectrum of things, right? It protected me as a youth, to make me bigger and stronger. So I could fight better or not get beat up as much. And it provided me the ability to be a better athlete so I can go to college. Mm-hmm. And then it provided me a living as a weightlifter, it was my profession. And then it provided me a living, the way to make money.
Yeah.
So, I've had this profound connection to the barbell, and then I lost it for my personal growth when I retired. Like I talked about, like almost 20 years of I was teaching this thing every day, and then it was really like I was at war with it for myself. Like I didn't really I did it out of habit. It was a thing that I really didn't want to do, but I did it because I thought that I just didn't know what else to do. And, then I found it, again in my 50s, and I realized, well, not only this for me, but I said, this is a way, I think this thing can really positively affect everybody's life. And it's look, I say barbell, but it's really, it's hard work, right? It's doing hard things.
Yeah.
It's suffering, right? That's why I call the book Suffer Smarter.
Yeah.
We're all going to suffer, whether we do it physically ourselves, or life has done it to us, or in whatever it is, but I think, even though I was lifting heavy things, I wasn't suffering with my training, right? People would look, I could, videos of me, I can barely walk, but I could squat 500 pounds. Yeah. I'm not suffering there because I can squat. I almost put 500 pounds over my head. Yeah. So it's not suffering for me. The moment that I pushed the prowler, it might have been 15 feet. I don't even know what it was. I broke down and started to cry because I said, oh my God, this is what I need. I felt like I was going to die. And I said, this is it. This is what I need. That's what got me to jiu-jitsu. Yeah. It got me to do these things that I was petrified of the way it made me feel. Yeah. But I just found myself growing as a person again because I had suffering re-enter into my life. Yeah. That I can control. Barbell for me is never going to be suffering for me anymore. Because it doesn't elicit those psychological and physiological responses because I can't do it like that anymore. But we talked about this, like riding the bike is like a nemesis for me. Yeah. And it's not hard physically, it burns and all that stuff, but it's not like life or death. Like I got off on life and death. Yeah. I wanted to do things that can kill me. That's how I found my suffering. Most people are not going to be able to do that or should do that. So absent that, where do I find it? How do you find it? And I swear to God, I truly believe that if everybody found that way of bringing that kind of suffering into their life, it would change their life. And sometimes that means getting off the couch, putting your shoes on, making time in your day to get off the couch, put on your shoes, and walk around the block. Yeah. For me, making my bed and brushing my teeth were things that were, that's suffering, but it was so hard for me to do that I started there. Yeah. Like, let me see if I could do this for a week. Make my bed and brush my fucking teeth. And then what's the next thing, right? I would put on my shoes and take a walk. And there were points in my life where those things were so, I couldn't even think about doing that.
When this is a really interesting, I think you and I talk about the term suffering the same. Right?
Yes.
It's a...
People what are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I think that's worth going over because the sense, what I'm talking about, I guess when maybe I'll try to clarify it on the spot. When you say suffer, I think about the conditions that I'm adapting to discomfort, right? Like the thing that is suffering is my brain is not comfortable.
Yes, it's being very uncomfortable is but that's a terrible title for a book.
No, but I don't think it is. There's this disease in our culture of comfort.
Yes.
Right. And
by design, we've designed our culture to be comfortable all the time
and avoid suffering at all costs. In fact, one of the things that this goes back and forth, this is Eastern thought, but there's a lot of philanthropy based off of the fact that we can reduce people's suffering. We can take it from them. And there's a lot of like well-meaning Western philanthropists that are trying to like remove suffering, you know, in populations that just can't seem to do it for themselves. And this has been projected by real spiritual leaders as like, this is the most immoral thing that you can do. And they've been talked about that. I mean, since you can go back to the Vedas and Buddha, and I would even say, to a sense, like Christianity is based off of the same thing. That when you try to remove somebody's suffering, you're actually removing the thing that will eventually free them.
Yeah.
There's a really famous. Do you know who Duncan Trussell is? Duncan Trussell, comedian, funny guy, but also he was one of the kind of like one of the few students of Ram Dass before he died. Ram Dass, the spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
Now, to go back, Ram Dass is one of the original Harvard professors.
Yeah.
He was good. He's responsible for the Good Friday study, which he got kicked out of the country for his trials on LSD and psilocybin mushrooms to kind of bring this thing to like a bookend. And he was looking for something in his exploration of psychedelics. It led him to India. He started studying under a guru there, and this is where he learned about suffering and love and all of these like greater human virtues. And when Duncan Trussell's mother was dying, and this is fat. If you want to rip your heart open and like, I mean, suffer emotionally temporarily for a show, watch I think it's the 8th or 9th episode of Midnight Gospel by Duncan Trussell. And it's about his mother dying.
Okay.
And the whole show is great, but it really comes to that episode. And I won't ruin it for everybody, but like when his mother was dying of brain cancer, he was getting advice from Ram Dass, and he was just like, "Oh, she's suffering so much. I just want it to end." And the big question he came back with, he's like, "You want it to end for her or end for yourself?" And this was such a powerful lesson. While Aaron's mother was dying, we went through a very similar thing where it was just so uncomfortable. And his advice was like, don't take that from her. That's the last thing she has, is her suffering. And it's the thing that links you to life. And so right now, as of now, we have people trying to remove this feature of our reaction to stress, which is suffering. It's just, the question is involuntary or voluntary suffering the way to go? And I think when we submit to voluntary suffering, we reduce the amount of involuntary suffering we do.
Yes.
And that's where I really saw the power in kind of the title of your book, as long as we could get over the cultural ignorance of suffering being like a pejorative. Now, there's also the, I think it's interesting. Some people, I have to remind myself of this, because as people that choose into difficulty, sometimes, we avoid it also. I drive an air-conditioned car, live in a we pick and choose our suffering as we see fit. I do have to remember that pain is relative. And you're right. Sometimes when somebody just thinks about going on a walk, the pain comes up in level that might be equal to what we're doing sprinting on a bike. And you're right. I think you do have to recognize with physical training. I recognize this kind of later, that the thing that I'm good at probably is not providing the thing that is good for me. And so I have this kind of, as soon as I start to really enjoy something, you go through these blocks of fitness where when high aerobic capacity stuff starts to feel really good because you're beating the pants out of other people and you just feel free.
Right.
It's probably not doing anything for you.
What 100%. If you're spending a long time and high effort on something, and to your point, it's probably not moving the needle. Yeah. If it's something you get a kick out of, then by all means. But if you want to suffer, than do things that you don't like to do.
I think the one, and this is actually the topic I wanted to come to, because so what I've found, because strength, let's talk about defining strength in physiology. I'm like, it's the top 20% of your control of a range of motion. That's kind of like, that defines your control of this neuromuscular, all that stuff. It fits into the top 20%. Underneath that, we're generally talking about hypertrophy according to the literature. Hypertrophy is something that I just get more enamored with, because it doesn't seem like, the more the better, the more supportive, the more you contract and move the body and signal these growth processes. And I really do think you're seeing this in the longevity, which is like the best, retirement investment you could make is in muscle mass past your 60s. And so I'm a big epiphany I had with strength training was that I jumped to the expression of the top 20%, and I did not build what the benefits and foundation that hypertrophy gives you if you really develop it to a degree. And I was wondering, like, in your own training and what you give your athletes, obviously sport specific aside, how do you see it this way? Do you see like hypertrophy as this foundation for strength expression?
Yeah, so with my young boys, the majority of the repetitions are hypertrophy,
Okay.
by far, especially in the upper body, because they're running and doing all the other stuff. So they don't need a ton of barbell volume, so to speak,
right?
For the legs.
Gotcha.
But I think that, it's funny, like young people and old people are very similar.
Yeah.
In the thing that, they need to, young people need to put on muscle mass, and old people need to maintain their muscle mass or continue to try to put it on.
Yeah.
I think that, and this is where another way I've changed in my coaching approach over the last 10 years is as far as my weightlifters go, we do a ton of hypertrophy work, I just think that, there's value in it from a performance perspective in sport. There's tremendous value in it as we age, for different reasons.
Yeah.
Right. It's, so I when you look at that, tremendous value when you're growing.
Mm-hmm.
So, in all elements of life, it's important. Yeah. So we got, it should be, as important as anything else that we do.
Yeah.
And as a young person, they don't have the neural coordination to develop high levels of peak strength.
Right.
Because it's a skill.
Yeah.
Like it takes time. So then if that's true, then you have to use submaximal weights. Mm-hmm. So the two things that will affect the body the most significantly with submaximal weights is speed of movement and volume.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's where the crux of the training needs to lie, because that's where you make the biggest effect.
That's really funny. So I call whatever it is, my little technique that I use to bridge hypertrophy into strength, I call it crux, because for me the crux is like the limiting factor to bridging an ascent, or so, like to complete something. There's really just like one thing that is holding you. And I find, let's talk about like linear path pressing or something like that. I've come up with this way, and it's not like overwhelmingly different than what people might notice, but I want people to bump up against where they're failing, and I want them to push past that limitation. So I've been able to, and by isolating to a single side, so unilateral movement, usually a dumbbell or a single leg, you can do it on a machine. Machine's probably best for leg movements. I find of trying to hit, a maximal rep with a very controlled body position, from somewhere from like 4 to 6 reps, you should be able to hit the spot where biomechanical efficiency breaks down and you hit what I would call the limitation. And the drill there is to not let it fail. It's just to continue to press into it, even if you're not moving anywhere, to not let the system go.
Oh, yeah.
Because I find that what happens with like failure training and hypertrophy is you go, huh, and then you drop it. And therefore, when you hit the same thing in strength training with a single or a double where you go, huh, and then you drop it, the crux is about keeping tension, keeping a high amount of tension, even though there's no success on the horizon. And funny enough, in testing this, what I found is like just teaching the ability, like, I don't care if you complete it. I care that you stick to it for a 12 to 13 second effort and push into the discomfort and contract harder. Most people will finish the rep. It just took a really long time. And then they bridge that gap. And so this is to come back to like talking about hypertrophy, or, you know, what we call strength endurance. What's interesting to me when I look at, I love looking at things like how movement affects behavior. And I talked about the sensitivity of strength training. What I also found fascinating was that strength athletes, especially powerlifters, when they would become broken, they're some of the most emotionally sensitive individuals that I've met. And what I found is that there was a predisposition in powerlifting. Something drew them to that expression. Maybe it was being bullied, maybe it was, you know, but there's definitely this like avatar there, which is like, I'm in a basement, I've got my black hoodie on, I'm listening to metal. Like the resistance against a barbell is definitely like, you are resisting something in culture as well. And that's just represented, it's played out in your basement with strength training. And then you pick the vehicle because it's carrying you to this feeling that you want to have, except you jumped to like maybe a conjugate system or something that is a top end sport specific application. And you jumped right into 6x2s and dynamic overloads and all of this stuff. And you miss the part where hypertrophy develops the second biggest sensory organ in the body to a high degree. And here's what I think hypertrophy does. Hypertrophy is self-confidence. That's the energy. Like that's the behavior trait.
Sure.
Right? You get, and here's where it's weird. Hypertrophy in its specific sport is bodybuilding. They're on a stage in skivvies, tan and flexing. It's the most confident expression, but it's been bastardized quite a bit. And I want to go back, but what makes somebody confident is I make people define it for me, and why we do massive repetitions is because, look, we're doing a high volume program or X, time and retention, because I want you to be very certain and confident in the muscle, in the ability to contract it to a certain degree so that you know it, so that when we bridge it up to a maximal effort, that confidence supports the sensitized thing that you're feeling. And what I found, and this was true of Dave Tate and some of the guys that were like EFS, those guys obviously, did things with a barbell that almost are insane. And when they broke themselves on it, I found that each one of them went back to bodybuilding. They went back to building their confidence, and then they were able to express their muscularity. And I was just wondering, it seems like you've done the same. Like you've come back to, okay, I need to build muscular tissue, lean tissue. And if that is, is that something that hits home where you notice this in strength athletes? My training is predominantly bodybuilding and VO2 max training. Yeah.
It's and like
you're into the sport of longevity.
Yeah, I'm in this Yeah. I mean, I'm into longevity. I mean, part of the reason I do bodybuilding is because I can do it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't. There's things that I can't do or just don't do.
Aren't worth the risk.
It's not worth the risk for me, right? But bodybuilding, training in those rep ranges, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And it, and I mean, there's vanity portion to this as well. I mean, I'm human.
Totally.
I'm in better shape now at 56 than I was at 36. Right. And as far as all the measurables like body fat and, my, all like my labs are all better now. And that has to do with what I consume and my movement. Yeah. And, everything is fixed, not everything, but things are fixable. But bodybuilding is really, it's a form of medicine as well, because I think the amount of blood that flies around,
delivering nutrients.
I think the lower, one of the other things why, talk about GPP and preparation for even professional athletes, it's not just the hypertrophy of the muscle, but it's the time under tension for the connective tissue, which really most of the injuries occur in the connective tissue.
Yeah, for sure.
So it because it's not high intensity, but it's intense enough. The contraction is intense enough to create the morphological changes that need to happen in the connective tissue. Yeah, that you don't get. You don't get with the heavy weights because you can't do it enough. Right. And if you do, you're going to get hurt. Yeah. So, there's a restorative effect with bodybuilding. There's a healing effect with bodybuilding. There's all these things. And I think at every stage in life, in everything that we do, physically, there needs to be some kind of lower intensity repetitive work. I just think that,
because that's the consistency.
Yeah.
You can't always hit a 90% for a double or something like that.
No. The vast majority of if you're training, with weights or machines or whatever you're training with, body weight, there needs to be a large volume of these things. And I have, and one thing that I've added, you mentioned it, is, training each side. Right. Like I even with my boys, we have a barbell squat day, and then we have a single leg day. Yeah. Right. And, we do barbell work, pressing, we do dumbbell work pressing, we do a ton of body weight stuff too. But I just think that working in high reps, working each side, these are not just things that we should do. They're things that everybody should do if you're an athlete or not. Yeah. And my weightlifters do it. It's part of their training. I just think there's great value in it. Great value.
So I got I reached out for people to have questions for you. I've got some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
To know, they didn't know it was you. I just said, respected strength coach. You're not going to get any personal questions, although that would be creepy if it was. One person knew who it was, but. All right. I had from Terrence. Ask him about his viewpoint on common misconceptions he sees in training today, or what he would do differently if he could go back in time and navigate the information overload. Like this is a real question about. Dude, there's so much.
I talk about this in my book. I got this fire hose of information. Like when I was young, information there was a scarcity. Yeah. Right. So. It was just hard to find. And now it's being blown at you through a fire hose. And now you're like, how do you know what to pay attention to? It depends. It depends on what you're trying to train for. If it's some person that just wants to be physically healthy, we can argue about different modalities, but at the end of the day, what's the thing that you get excited about? If you're not doing anything is good. But now if you get past that point, I think that stop worrying about the details. Like, let's just show up every day and do something. Something that affects your body composition, something that affects your muscle mass, something that affects your ability to move your own body, being able to get off the ground, like just move through space, unbothered.
Yeah.
Right. So find things that do those things. Now, I talk about in my book, the barbell to me is just the easiest way to do that. Like it's just the easiest way to accomplish most of those things.
Yeah.
But like, stop worrying about just like, there's so much minutia, so much just bullshit on. It's not bullshit. It's all fine. It's just, you don't need it.
It distracts from, there's things that are possibly true for the top 1%, and they're being fed to the lower 90.
Right. Like none of that, like the weightlifting training that I'm doing with my guys that I'm trying to get onto a world championship team have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right. It just, this isn't, if you want to pull back 5,000 feet and look at basic concepts, great.
Yeah.
But like, let's not, I look at, people give him shit all the time, but like, if you don't know anything about anything, get Mark Ripeto's book.
Yeah.
Right? Like, starting strength is great. For somebody that start, you want to know what to just do that.
Yeah.
The milk thing's a little weird, but it's not terrible.
I've seen worse.
Yeah, like drinking a gallon of milk to get. I mean, I've seen a lot worse. Better than taking, you're never trained before and sticking, 500 milligrams of testosterone up your ass.
For sure.
So it doesn't have to get much more basic. It doesn't have to get much more complicated.
Yeah. I think if you don't know anything, obviously go into like reputable sources, or at least things that have been established, right? Well, I would say, like, in which case, I think if you're just getting started, like you said, like, there's nothing wrong with going like Ripeto or Wendler or one of these like established strength and conditioning. As soon as I would just say that there's probably there's an advancement period where you start to recognize, like, I don't like this, or I like this instead.
Yeah, but you got to try it.
And I would say, there's no way to know what is going to affect you. Like, there's some squat programs I didn't do well with. I didn't like them. And then there's some that I really gravitated towards. Now, same movement, totally different theory behind them. What's important isn't which one was right, which one was like, what was important is that I felt that something worked better for me.
Yeah.
I chased that a little bit. It is hard though. It's a hard question because this came up, somebody looking for, asking about, hey, even a simple question like, do you know a coach in my city? And you go, no. Then how do you choose somebody? And you go, well,
I talk about that in my book.
Okay.
How to choose gym, how to choose somebody to work with.
What's your like good recommendation for that?
Yeah. I think obviously like pedigree, like, or resume, I think is important.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to say I've been doing this for 30 years. So,
sure.
They're certainly biased
towards you. Yeah.
Towards me.
Yeah.
And this is a harder one, but like walking into a gym and like seeing what's going on, right? Like what's everybody doing? Is everybody on their phone?
Yeah.
Is it, is the music blaring and nobody's working?
Yeah.
What do the movements look? Do they look like the movements, or is it like, it's hard to say if someone's never seen somebody squat before, they wouldn't know if that a good squat or a bad squat.
Right.
But, I think, what do people, it depends. What do people look like? Are there people in there that look like you want to look?
If you know nothing else, I would go back to kind of how you described. how you got enamored with training.
Right.
It's like you saw something that you liked, gravitate towards those people. I wouldn't take what they say as gospel.
No.
But I would definitely, I think the most important thing is to be in an environment that you like to be in. And whether that's a gym or
whatever
outside.
Is it a place that you enjoy going to that you can, because it's a tribal, you're buying into a tribe.
Yeah.
Right. And there's certain behaviors and language and ceremonial things that happen in a tribe.
Yeah.
Right. Like, those are the things that you can that make you feel good about being there. Yeah. So like, I think that if you're starting your journey, as long as they're not doing just total asinine, stupid shit. If you're starting your journey, find a tribe that you're comfortable with. It's one of the reasons why I love this place.
Yeah. Because
it checks a lot of boxes for me. Like, I walk in here and I look at the people training, and I'm like, that's how I'm back to being a kid. Yeah. Like, that's how I want to look.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. And I watch guys on the floor. That's how I want to feel. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so like, when you come to this place, you know what you're buying into.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would also say, like, that we're definitely not some people's cup of tea.
No. Yeah. And that's fine. Like, I never wanted a gym that everybody loved. In fact, I wanted most people to not love it.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's fascinating, actually. Yeah, I think by trying to serve everyone and everything, you serve nobody.
So my business partner, Neil, so when somebody want to come to my gym, they would come in, and so Neil's job, one of his jobs, he would sit with them for like a fucking hour and a half, and basically tell them try to convince them to not come.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had him during like team training or like when shit was going down.
Yeah.
Not that these people would ever have done anything like that.
Right.
But they needed to know what the hell this place was about.
Yeah.
And if you were timid and a bitch, you would never come back.
This is interesting because this is, I think people that propose this question very rarely recognize what a community of people who hold each other accountable is. And I'll answer it like, if you're only looking for what you can get out of something, you're not going to be a good addition to the places that you'll get the most out of.
Oh, that's great, man.
Right, like, the first thing you should look at is, what are you offering, and not money. What are you offering so that you can receive in return? Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just like when I think about it, like all the best gyms that I've been to, and I can name them, man, I love training at them. When I show up, I'm like, man, how can I add to this? Like, can I work harder? Can I Can I clean after? It counts for jiu-jitsu gyms as much as it does normal gyms. And I think that gets lost because we are in a transactional era where people just think that, like, what's the service? How much is it? Okay, what can you teach me? And you go, just try this on for size. Just maybe ask, like, can you make the environment better? And if you can't, don't go to that place. There's some environments where you can make them better, and there's some that you're going to detract from. Me going into, probably at this point, maybe just I used to love dropping into like CrossFit boxes and just throwing down. But me at this point, I probably am not going to add to the environment because I'm going to be criticizing the fuck out of whatever I'm in. And maybe for a while that was useful, but now I don't want to do a disservice to the people that are enjoying it. And, other gyms, big boxes, maybe like when I go to a big box gym, I train fucking hard.
Yeah. I was there this morning.
Okay. Yeah. I want to.
That's the reason I went.
Yeah. I can use the environment of semi-lazy people to hold myself accountable. I use things as a reflection, Sometimes I love going to dinner with like obese and out of shape people because it reminds me of what I do. I'll watch them order and I will double down on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I will be, no, this is how I eat. This is how I train. So it's an interesting, funny enough, the second question is from Jago, very similar, like how do you dissuade through information? Maybe you answer it in the same vein. It's like, I think maybe the obvious answer for me, because it kind of relates to the first one, is don't be in a rush. Right. I think a lot of people want to hurry and get what they're looking for is an answer, when in reality, raising the question, finding the right question is the most important part. That's the clarity of the 3 C's. And I think that's what I regret not doing, is not being very clear about what it was I was trying to do. I was just like vibrating with wants.
Yeah. But it's a tough, so like, for you and I, although you didn't come from this world, you came from a different world and you're self-taught. I try to think about, I try to come at this question from like a child's mind, right? Like, I don't know anything. How do I know what I should know? And I am, look, I made a choice in my path to study this. Like I got my undergrad in biology and physical education. I read and graduate school, it was biomechanics and physiology. So like, I wanted to know everything there was to know about how the body works. So it's very easy for me to make these decisions because I can answer, I can see the levels of complexity in the answer. But like, what if you're a business major?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know? Like, you can't, if I tell you just read what Michael writes, just read what I write, and just read what Jim Wendler writes.
Yeah.
But that's not helping. That's, that's giving him the food.
I think, you're absolutely bringing up a point that like, we struggled with for a really long time, which is like, if you give somebody the answer, you've destroyed the problem.
But then you don't even know what questions to ask.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's like, and this is where I thought, to be fair, to kind of hit the nail on the head, that's where I think most people find sport. It's an answer to what should I do, right? And it's really not. Like most things, the question is the most valuable. Like trying to find Josh, the guy who was represented as the kid in the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. I forgot his last name.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so he has this concept that is absolutely so important, and he doesn't care what you're doing. Is like, if on the day you're not asking what the most important question is, you're missing everything. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. And you're right that like, we are humans full of multitudes. If I'm specializing and focusing on business, I don't have time to get a physiology degree. Therefore, I'm looking towards how can I navigate this very complex subject? And this is where we run into problems, because you like, well, just do this, then this, then this. We're like, well, we're taking a lot of the benefit out by just making somebody go down a very narrow path or a very general path, depending on it. And so there is two sides of this. So like, it really depends on what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with the clarity thing. It brings us back to, if you tell me the intention, I can tell you what the best question to ask is, or at least get you close to it.
Okay.
I think training is trying to answer the question. It's not, training is not a result of answering the question. It is a result of the question itself. When I show up, and I think, what carries me, and I'm pretty consistent at training for 15 years. Yeah. I think I can count maybe on my toes and hands how many days I've missed.
Oh, wow.
Not very many. And I mean miss as in like, I didn't plan to train that day, or I planned to train that day and I couldn't, or something like that. I have so much consistency, and the thing that always pops up is not, in fact, it's never been, this does this. That's never carried me. In fact, that kills it for me. When I know what I'm going to get out of something, I really am like, well, then why would I do it? And this is the deep philosophical part that I try to layer on people. Is like, if you know what you're going to get out of it, there's nothing to learn from that. And therefore you will be harder to do the process. But if you're curious, if you're like, I wonder what this feels like, or I wonder what the reaction to be, I wonder if this will make me X, man, the only way to answer that question is to do the movement or go through the process. And I feel like that reveals the teacher, the guide, the person.
So you recommend, and I like you, just experiment, like just do everything.
Yeah,
and then figure, and then because that'll give you some level of education.
Yeah,
you know, and then you see, you know, what feels good, what you're willing to do, and
to be fair, my first question about whether I like jiu-jitsu, I got the wrong answer. Right? It told me very specifically for 4 years of trying it that I did not like this thing, that this was not for me, and timing wise, maybe it wasn't. But I thought I knew, right? I took 4 years. No one would say that I didn't try, but I got the environment wrong. And then fast forward, 12 years later, 13 years later, and I got reintroduced into a different environment thinking that I went, well, here we go, because I already know. And then a new question got raised and I had to rewrite everything that I knew about it. And now it's become this great other discovery later, and it's like, this is why I say don't rush, because the timing is the timing. You know what?
Well, it's a similar arc that I had with training. You know, it's
come back to it. Yeah.
I mean, I created my own environment,
exactly.
But it changed the environment, changed the questions.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. I think to answer that question is do everything.
Yeah.
Right. Just do everything and accumulate experience.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to ask better questions.
Yeah.
And you'll have a little bit more information.
I might like predicate it on a question, like on the person seeking like information about trying to, who do you think has the best experiences? The ones that do what they're told, or the ones that discover what they should do?
So, it's funny you say that. So like I carve out time with my boys for them to do their own thing.
Nice. Yeah.
And I love watching. I love to see like what do they come up with?
I'd have open sessions here where I write 10 minutes warm up, 10 minutes mobility.
Yep. So I do that with my boys. Yeah. I think it's important.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. I think it's important. Yeah. So I think to answer your question is you need both.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I think
some
you need
direction, some exploration.
You need exploration is very important, but I think you need a guide. Yeah. You need a driver.
Yeah,
I think you need both. And I think that as you go on the journey, as you're on this journey, I think it switches. I still need. Yeah. I come here. Yeah. I talk to you. I talk to some other people because I still need some guidance.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
more than ever.
More than ever.
Yeah.
But most of my time I spend with self-exploration. Yeah. Oftentimes I know, like today, it was going to be an upper body day. I was going to do some pushing and some pulling. Sometimes I knew I don't always know what I'm going to do. I know how I want to feel, right? Like if I know that if this is a strength, if I'm going for a strength stimulus, it's going to be a lower repetition, or if it's a mix, but it's all exploration. And it was the hardest thing for me to do because I'm a guy that said I was handed a sheet,
a program,
and said, do this. Yeah. And I did everything that was on the sheet. So, to be able to give myself the freedom to choose and to make sure and to know that it's okay. Yeah. It opened everything up for me because before I was planning my training. Yeah. I worked 18 hours right? And I'm supposed to do this thing on the paper, and I can't do it, and then I'm a failure.
You get the good boy check if you finish or complete, which essentially what is arbitrary.
Yeah. And then I was like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
So I think this is the other thing that give yourself some grace, and go, like, if you have a coach, I'm not saying don't listen to the coach, but have conversations with the coach.
Yeah.
Unless you're training for something very specific. Like, my weightlifters are not going to deviate very much from the program, because the program is designed to elicit very specific responses. But absent something like that, who gives a fuck?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like, get going, and know that if you have a really hard day, if you want to measure it with load, great. But if it's a hard day, follow it with an easy day.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be just some formulaic, complex thing. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Which is, look, people shit on CrossFit. I think the implementation of that kind of training can be bad. Like, you could fuck that up.
For sure.
But the concept of, these different things, I think there's big problems with it.
Sure. Like anything. Yeah.
But like the variety and the different ranges of intensity, and they did it no matter how they felt, which is stupid.
Right.
What I'm saying is, I like that, it doesn't have to be any one thing. Have a basic concept of how to plan your stress. But then how you fill those days is not as important as just showing up and doing it.
Yeah, going through the motions.
Yeah.
We leave a lot of room for feeling how you should feel. And also, where we've moved from is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is, like, we used to be so rooted in the sports science of it. I want this power outcome with this kind of like velocity, or like what we were like really gearing in. There's nothing tangible about that. There's nothing I can grab onto and be like, yeah, VO2 max, or, but then when I started looking, well, what are the like underlying sensations of these attributes? That really opened it up. Like, well, do you want to feel like that? Because if like in CrossFit, if I want to feel like there's no oxygen in the room, I'll train like that.
Right.
If that's what I'm seeking. But if I want to, like, man, you know what? I just want to feel good today.
Right.
I want to walk out of the gym being like, I feel, mobile and loose, and I feel like, competent with my body. Man, I'm probably not going to burn the house down.
Right. And the more experiences you have, like when you come in and say, this is how I want to feel, then instantly you can revert to a list in your head and say, these are the things that make me feel that way.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Like these are the things that I want to, I want to be strong on my upper body today. Well, these are the things that do that.
I think originally one of the first ways that I started formal training was that I accumulated a card sheet of workouts that I would do.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't have told you what I was doing, but I would recognize how something made me feel, and I would go to that without knowing it. Totally amateur, but I would justify it, be like, oh, this is a leg day with, hypertrophy. And I would name all the like scientific attributes,
right.
But I would justify the workout in the end based off of how I felt. And what ended up happening over the course of that I've been doing this is, like, now in my head, I have structures and movements and exercises and domain times that I can kind of put together based off of how I want to feel.
Right.
That's really what I try to teach people. Like, have kind of a Rolodex in your head. And that way, each day that you can improve how you feel, you will have a better day. You can really set the tone for your day. And a lot of people are just like brutes about it. They're like, you get up, you crush the day, you do your 5x5. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm like, really tune into like how you want to feel, not just doing some kind of thing. Some days, man, it just feels so good to lift a heavy weight.
And then you do it.
Yeah.
And then you know what works for you.
Yeah.
Like, but that comes with experience. I experience different things. The one thing I would add about, how to pick, if you're looking for somebody to work with, one of the things that I feel is very important is work with somebody whose goal it is to have you be independent and self-reliant.
That is so
like
important.
if somebody, if you work with somebody and their goal is to make you dependent, get the fuck out, run as fast as you can.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that I think in an industry where we have like kind of weird value rules around the service that we provide people, it really does kind of incentivize coaches to keep them in the dark about the process so that they need the coaching or the service or the environment. And I agree with you totally. Like, we're fairly transparent about, man, if 6 months of being around me, the gym, and me sharing things with you, in 6 months, you don't know how to go do a workout on your own, I have failed.
Right. 100%.
Right. Like, you spent 6 months with me. You should understand what you're doing, how it makes you feel, what not to do to some degree. It doesn't mean you're a physiologist or that you could coach other people. It just means that you paid enough attention and took lessons away. And I think if you're not reinforcing that as a professional, knowing that the real arc for everybody is just the more they can know about this stuff, the better they're going to be in the end. Man, you're doing a disservice to everybody. Yeah.
And your people should stay. Like, well, if they know, then they'll leave. Your people should stay not because they need to, right? It's because they find value in the culture that you build in that building.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where CrossFit really shines.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This incredible. I would go. I mean, in the early days, I was all over the country. Yeah. At different places. Yeah. And the one thing that and the gyms that were that stayed were they had this incredible culture. Yeah. Everybody would do it. It's not like all these people could train anywhere.
Yeah.
By themselves, but that's why they're staying. Yeah. So like when you look for a place, and you're there for a while, just make sure that you're and I would say pay attention and learn, because again, then you can arm yourself with better questions. So don't just show up and be acted upon.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of weird because this follows it. This is kind of this is for Paul Jones. I think it's the same answer actually, which is like, what are you doing for longevity, as this feels a far greater goal? Now, when you mention it, you're like, what gets you to do something consistently is communal. But maybe you'd answer this differently. Like, what do you think like the biggest contributor to you in having a longevity goal? What do you think the contributing factor is?
So, communal it's the one thing I don't have. Like, I wish I had more of it. Yeah. I've trained pretty much by myself. Yeah. But I think that I think community is one of the biggest. Strong community is one of the biggest reasons why people remain training. Just a strong gym community. Yeah. That culture, and I just think that you want longevity, be around other people. Yeah. That are doing the same thing.
I can't help but think of like those parks in China where there's like 100 old ladies doing Tai Chi, and you're like, they're not obsessed with Tai Chi. They're obsessed with they're obsessed with like the feeling they get being around other humans.
And the interaction. I don't think, we don't interact as much in person as we used to.
No.
So I think that, especially for young kids, like I think it's important. That's why one of the things I like about sports or just being around, it's just, it forces you to interact. And I think as humans, as adult humans, some people aren't interacting with anybody in person all day, right? Because they're working remotely from home on a screen or so I think that, that will add to the value, to your life. So I think that, that's why, picking the right place is so important. Yeah. But don't do it on your own. Yeah. I think, not that you can't,
Right. Oh, for sure.
Right. But don't.
Yeah.
I do it on my own, mostly just to be quite honest, I need a break from people.
Totally. For sure.
But I miss it. Like I like it. But I'm doing this for, I've been training for 43 years.
Yeah.
So like training is a very different thing for me.
Yeah.
But the best times, the most enjoyable has been when I've been with a group of people that are doing the same thing, experiencing the same feelings. Mm-hmm. There is no better feeling than that.
Yeah.
And I really, you got to find that place. You got to find that tribe.
My last question for you, which is from me, what would you like to see as a shift in the industry that would improve people's outcomes? Not just yours personally, but like, what do you think the biggest shift would come from?
This is pie in the sky shit, but I think if it's the government that dictates the tone of things in the country, there was a time when physicality was valued.
Yeah, it was a national pride,
right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's gone. Not only it's not only decreased, but it's actually gotten to the point where physicality is bad.
Yeah, it's the opposite. Yeah. Being capable is a negative thing.
There was a point, and people shit on me for this, but there was a point in time when you would not see an out of shape person on TV.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, cause it was, that's not who we were.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, it's hard to find somebody in shape on TV.
Yeah.
Especially in commercials.
Yeah.
I just picked up like one of those streaming services like Hulu or something, and there's commercials. Yeah. I haven't watched I don't have a TV.
Yeah, yeah.
So I haven't had but there was something I wanted to watch, so I got this thing, and first time I watched commercials in forever.
Yeah.
And they're trying to sell me something with a fat guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I not only, am I not going to watch a commercial, I will never buy your product.
Yeah.
So like I would love to see like a shift, cultural shift.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the importance of being able to express ourselves physically.
I'll tell you why I agree with you is because I need as much help as possible. I need as much motivation as possible to keep doing the hard thing, to keep pressure on it. Like I grew up in the 80s with action movies. And to be fair, I'm so glad that I did.
Oh yeah.
Right. I'm so glad I had these montages to tap into, training montages that I'm like, you can do better. Like I can, is it realistic? No. In fact, like the Rocky story is like the opposite of the actual movie. He was the one on drugs and the Russian doll was like clean, but it didn't matter. What it was showing was like, hey, you can change yourself. You can you can work on it.
And it's important to change yourself.
It is. The best outcomes will come by addressing your shortcomings and trying to shift those and become, it is aspirational. And if you look at all mythology, that is what it embodies. All the warnings are about not changing. All of the like the fables about failing are like sticking to who you are and blaming the external world for your internal problems. So I think you're right. I mean, that's such a important kind of shift in our society when some people call it victim culture, whatever you want to call it. I think it's easy to define. And it's not that, I want to make people feel bad for who they are. It's that they
should feel bad for who they are.
Well, they should be able to look I guess the way to put it is that, and this is the language for me is important, because I don't think shame works, but not for the degree that it probably should, the mechanism that it should. But people should understand that their agency changes their predicament. It's a very simple input and output, because the problem with believing yourself a victim and the celebration of being a victim, and that is essentially celebrating being weak, on the topic of strength, is that you become the NPC character of the world. If you don't think you have agency to change, because we've been convinced by this modern psychology that we don't make our own decisions, or that everything is too bad to change, you're like, really, what is the point? Like, this is all about change. This is all about shifting. Like, things are shifting and changing all the time. That's the natural physics of it. So I agree with you. I think I always just like to know, like, some people resign themselves in this industry to go, well, it's all fucked. And I go, man, but if enough people are talking about why it is, or why they would want to change it, the conversation becomes more common, because that's generally what's missing. I think people just go, we're getting yelled at for shaming people or whatever, and therefore we'll just shut up. And like, well, if we shut up, the aspiration goes away. The reaching towards what we think is beneficial. I want to see humans continue to get stronger and express, like, varying and higher degrees of resilience and advancement. Progress comes from this, like, ability to hone the human biology. And so my hope is that training is just a metaphor for all human development. It's inputs and outputs. And if we can, like, really, like, hone that message so that people understand that it isn't just about having big, strong muscles or whatever, that these are correlates to the things that they want out of an experience. I think
I even take it further than that, Michael. I would say that, it's your responsibility as a human, that living with other humans in this fishbowl, to take responsibility for your own health. Because if you don't, I have to. In one way or another, financially or whatever, my taxes go up because they got to put these fucking ramp things on the sidewalks, or there is a downstream effect both ways. Like, if you're not going to give a shit, there's a downstream effect, and if you do give a shit, there's a downstream effect. But either way, I got to live with it. We all have to live with together. So as if you're if you're living together, make sure your fucking lawn is taken care of. Yeah. Right. I shouldn't have to fix your lawn. That's putting it on me. I got my own shit to worry about. So, and I just think that it's not only, it's your moral imperative to take care of yourself. Yeah. And I wish that more people thought that was important. Play the game with me, right? Like, kids that are physical, that move, and food, I think, is a big part of that too. But let's just say, kids that are physical, that are moving, that are stronger, are more confident. Yeah. Right. You want to talk about, like, look, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy or anything like that. Sure. But, kids that have an outlet for that energy, like, we're medicating young boys who are overactive, but we're not letting them run around. We're not letting them go out. Yeah. So, like, where is that energy going to go? So, being more physical at a young age creates healthier kids. And not only just health, but, like, smarter kids. Yeah. Test scores will go up if you have real physical education and time for play. They will go up. Those stupid, useless fucking test scores that we base everything on will go up.
I'll go conspiracy theory for you. Weak people are easy to dominate. It's a abuser cycle.
Right.
And no matter how you look at it, like, you know, you can say that it's premeditated or that it is a cabal of bad actors, but a people that doesn't know their own strength is really easy to rule over.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, they're desperate for help. It comes like, why the agency thing is so important for me is like recognizing your own potential for strength, period. It really does show what you have control over. You can only control yourself. But when you don't know that, you said self-confidence in these kids, like when you have no confidence, you have no way to defend yourself against bad information or bad food or the second you start developing yourself, you start recognizing patterns. And it really is, you know, yoga today is not what yoga was when it was developed. Right. Yoga is about control. Right, the
position
practice is absolutely about controlling the breath, controlling your position. It is an act of strength. Now, I'm not saying like it's strength training according to what we know.
Oh, but it's
philosophically it was right, and that's how a lot of these, like when people really recognize what they were doing in India with physicality in order to like develop their philosophy and their spirituality, that's really what they're looking at. I don't think it's any different. I just think we've been convinced that the world is purely physical and that we can't affect it like how we should, because that's dangerous for people to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's nothing dangerous about being strong and physical. And, you know, I'll take it even further, like with men, with boys. I mean, women, it's not, I'm more concerned with young boys and men. I think that they're in jeopardy. And this is a very high level of simplification, but you know, we see a lot of boys that are insecure, physically weak. They become loner. They bury themselves. They insulate themselves. They become incels. You know, they don't, and they grow to resent women. And they don't have interactions, healthy interactions with women. They go to porn, and you see where this is going, right? Yeah. Like then you get a mass shooter.
Yeah,
right. Like you get these. They're you know, a happy boy that's confident, most likely is not going to shoot up a mall.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's something insidious about you know, our failure to educate human beings on
how to be a human being.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that is, and community has to do with it. I think the best part, that why we mentioned, like, obviously, like what you can add to something is because self-discovery really has to do with what you can add to a group, and then what you get out of it is personal development. Like we have been lucky enough, Aaron and I have been lucky enough to foster and grow a community that supports us back in our hardest times. Now, we're lifting weights and it's exercise and it's superficial, but when we lost our daughter, the one thing that we were probably most blown away with was the amount of people who we exercise with that showed up in ways that you can't ever imagine.
Yeah, your tribe, man.
And you know, I think a lot of people don't have that. And if this is, I don't say that you have to get it through gym. I'm saying like it is one avenue.
It's an avenue.
Sebastian Junger talked about the importance of tribe, obviously, but it was so important what he discovered in the military and in times of hardship to have community that bolsters you, that he moved to a very like poor part of New York to live in a Puerto Rican neighborhood because he knew that they were tight-knit communities and that he was a white middle-aged male that was at most highest risk of isolating and then self-destructing. And I think you're right to point out Well, it has to start somewhere. Where does the isolationist, where do these things about, basically telling young men or young boys that they don't have control over their outcome, that they are in the wrong time period, that they should just go home, they shouldn't move around a lot, they shouldn't explore their own bodies, their own potential, they shouldn't, it's basically telling that they're not part of a society.
I mean, that's coming from the light tower. You think what you want about Kennedy as a president.
Oh, yeah.
He had many flaws, but the one thing that he did, he was like, look, this is important.
Yeah.
Right. Being physically fit is important.
Yeah.
And, we have the opposite of that now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me. And the people that are making these decisions, I haven't seen their dick since they're fucking 10 years old.
So, I think it's a strange time to recognize and understand how different we are as a society. And I think that's why I'm really interested in like the culture and history of strength training, because it is so vast. And I think oftentimes, like, when you're not reminded about how we got here, survived 200,000 years of natural pressures, and obviously, for 199,000 of those years, famine was the executioner, and now overconsumption is. And you're like, it's worth looking back in history how they dealt with hardship, and that's why. You're my first guest on the podcast, but also on a fundamental subject like strength being embedded into our cultures. I figured you'd be one of the best people to talk on it. So thank you for coming on. Just so people, where can they find your book?
It is currently on Amazon,
nice.
The physical copy. Michael and I are going to be working on the audio book.
Yeah, nice.
As soon as we both get our shit together, and I'll be doing the audio book in this studio, as a matter of fact, and soon when we're done with it, it'll be on Audible.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
Well, that's a good question. Oh, I'm on Instagram. _Sean _Waxman.
Nice.
And I'm on Facebook. I think it's just my name, Sean Waxman.
Awesome.
If you want to read the first chapter of the book, you can go to SeanWaxman.com and you can download the first chapter for free.
Awesome.
And I think that's all.
Awesome.
You can find me at Bingham High School coaching up my boys.
Hell yeah. I'll put that link so people can read the first chapter and get a load of what the book's about. Thank you for coming on. I'm sure this won't be our last conversation.
No.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, brother.